There's a small town in the northeastern part of the country, nestled deep in the pines. It is the kind of town you'd miss if you blinked while driving through. The locals call it Block Hollow, a place that feels frozen in time, with its single gas station, general store, and an old church that hasn't seen a congregation in decades. Block Hollow is surrounded by thick woods on all sides, and the trees grow so close together that even in daylight, the forest floor is bathed in shadows. The people of Block Hollow are an insular bunch, wary of outsiders and fiercely protective of their own. It's a town where everyone knows everyone, and secrets are as much a part of life as the air that they breathe. But there's one secret, one story, that even the most tight-lipped among them will refuse to speak of. A story that's haunted Block Hollow for generations. The whispers in the pines. It all began with the Barrow family. In the late 1800s, Isaac Barrow moved his family to Block Hollow to escape the crowded, polluted cities of the East Coast. Isaac was a man of simple means, but he had a dream of living off the land, providing for his wife and children with the fruits of his labor. They settled into a small cabin at the edge of the forest, where the trees loomed tall and the underbrush was thick with brambles. At first, life in Block Hollow seemed idyllic. The forest was bountiful, providing everything the Barrows needed. But as the months passed, strange things began to happen. It started with the animals. At night, they would hear them, the deer, the foxes, even the birds, screaming. Not just the usual sounds of the wild, but something more desperate, more terrified. It was as if the entire forest was alive with fear. Isaac, a pragmatic man, dismissed it as the natural order of things, predators hunting their prey, nothing more. But his wife Eliza wasn't so sure. She had grown up hearing stories about the forest, about the old spirits that lived among the trees. Her grandmother had warned her never to venture too deep into the woods, for there were things there that did not belong to this world. But Isaac wasn't one to listen to old wives' tales. He continued to hunt and trap, venturing deeper into the forest as the game became scarce. And that's when he found it, the clearing. It was a strange place deep in the woods, far from any trails. The trees surrounding it were old, older than any Isaac had ever seen. Their bark was twisted and gnarled, as if in pain. In the center of the clearing was a stone circle, the rocks covered in strange symbols, worn down by time, but still faintly visible. The air in the clearing was thick, heavy with the scent of decay, though there was no sign of rot or death. Isaac felt an unease settle in his chest, a primal instinct warning him to leave. But he ignored it. Instead, he stepped into the clearing, curious about the strange stones. As he approached the circle, he noticed something odd. The ground inside the circle was bare. Not a single blade of grass or weed grew there. The earth was dry and cracked, despite the dampness of the surrounding forest. Then he heard it, the whispering. It was faint at first, barely audible over the rustling of the leaves, but it grew louder as he neared the stones. It was not one voice, but many, a chorus of soft, urgent whispers that seemed to come from all around him. Isaac couldn't make out the words, but there was an insistence to them, a pleading that chilled him to the bone. He spun around, searching for the source of the voices, but there was nothing there. Just the trees standing still and silent. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, as if whatever was speaking was trying to warn him, or perhaps lure him closer. Isaac's heart pounded in his chest, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He backed away from the stones, the whispers following him, growing fainter with each step he took. By the time he stumbled out of the clearing, the whispers had faded to nothing, but the unease remained. Isaac hurried back to the cabin, trying to shake the feeling that something was watching him, something unseen and malevolent. He didn't tell Eliza about the clearing, not wanting to worry her, but she could sense something was wrong. Isaac became withdrawn, spending more and more time in the woods, searching for game that had all but disappeared. The forest, once so full of life, had grown quiet, as if the creatures that lived there had fled or been driven away. Then one night it happened. Isaac woke in the middle of the night to a sound that chilled him to the bone. It was the whispering, louder than ever, filling the cabin with its eerie, disembodied voices. He sat up, his heart pounding, as he realized the whispers were coming from outside, from the direction of the clearing. He grabbed his rifle and crept to the window, peering out into the darkness. At first, he saw nothing, just the shadowy outline of the trees. But then, in the distance, he saw a figure, standing just at the edge of the forest. It was tall and thin, its limbs unnaturally long, its head tilted at an odd angle, as if listening to something only it could hear. Isaac's breath caught in his throat as the figure began to move, gliding silently through the trees, its movements fluid and unnatural. It stopped at the edge of the clearing, its head turning slowly towards the cabin. For a long moment, it stood there, as if staring directly at Isaac, though its face was obscured by the shadows. Then, without warning, it turned and vanished into the trees, the whispers fading away with it. Isaac didn't sleep for the rest of the night, his mind racing with fear and confusion. The next morning, he decided they needed to leave Block Hollow. But when he told Eliza, she refused. This was their home, she argued, and she wasn't about to abandon it because of some strange noises in the night. Isaac knew there was no convincing her, so he decided to go back to the clearing one last time. He had to know what was out there, what was haunting their land. He packed a bag with supplies and set off early, leaving Eliza and the children at the cabin. The forest was eerily quiet as he made his way through the trees. The usual sounds of the birds and insects were absent. When he reached the clearing, he found it just as he had left it, the stones silent and still, but the feeling of unease was stronger than ever, a palpable tension in the air that made his skin crawl. Isaac approached the stone circle cautiously, his rifle at the ready. As he neared the stones, the whispering began again, louder this time, more insistent. He stopped at the edge of the circle, staring down at the bare earth within. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices pleading, warning, beckoning. Isaac's hands trembled as he reached out to touch one of the stones. The moment his fingers brushed the cold surface, the whisper stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, the air heavy with anticipation. Then, the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The stones in the circle started to glow faintly, a sickly green light emanating from the symbols etched into their surfaces. Isaac stumbled back, his heart racing as the earth within the circle began to crack and split, a dark, gaping hole opening in the center. From the darkness below, something emerged. It was the figure he had seen the night before, its long, thin limbs unfolding as it rose from the pit. But now, in the harsh light of day, he could see it clearly, and what he saw filled him with a terror unlike anything he had ever known. The creature was not human. Its skin was molted gray, stretched taut over the skeletal frame. Its eyes were hollow pits, black and empty, and its mouth was a gaping maw filled with rows of needle-like teeth. It moved with an unnatural grace, its limbs bending at impossible angles as it crawled out of the hole. Isaac stumbled back, his mind reeling with horror. He raised his rifle, but before he could fire, the creature lunged at him, its long fingers wrapping around his throat. He felt the air being forced from his lungs as the creature lifted him off the ground, its grip impossibly strong. As Isaac's visions darkened, he heard the whispers again, louder now, a deafening roar in his ears. But this time, the voices were not pleading or warning. They were laughing, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed in his mind as the creature tightened its grip. The last thing Isaac saw before the darkness claimed him was the creature's empty eyes, staring into his soul. That was the last anyone ever saw of Isaac Barrow. When Eliza realized he wasn't coming back, she took the children and left Block Hollow, never to return. The cabin still stands at the edge of the forest, abandoned and forgotten, slowly being reclaimed by the woods. And the clearing? It's still there, hidden deep in the pines, the stones silent and still.